Canadian Kyle here at the Wealth Artist Podcast, and today I'm joined with Dustin Perry. He's the co-founder and CEO of Kingfisher Metals, ticker symbol is KFR and the TSXV, and they're a grassroots exploration company with projects in British Columbia, Canada. So, Dustin, thanks for coming on to take my call.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Good to be here.
As a new guest on the program, I always ask, what were you doing when you were my age? So I'm 26, so what were you doing from 20 to 26 years old?
Well, at 20, we were just talking actually how we were both recently in Peru. And the first time I was in Peru was around age 20 when I was taking a break for a couple of years between. So I started a biology degree. I played varsity rugby at University of Victoria. Basically my entire the back line, all the back players from the BC team all went to UVic. So that was the focus in life at that point. But I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. I was doing a biology degree, pre-med essentially, and took some time off, went traveling and tried to figure out what to do, and had some conversations with some mentors, and geology was the right fit. And so in that time frame, I was still in school, I guess, and towards the end of it, I was early on in my career. So probably around age 26 or so, I was working in either northern BC, or at one point I was managing a crew of about 15 in Spanish and in a war zone in the narco areas in Mexico.
Oh,
So yeah, quite good experiences on both ends of the spectrum at that age. But I was working. So
And you could speak Spanish, or?
I studied right through till second year university, and then on that trip to Peru, that was part of a 5-month South American trip,
Cool.
and then working down, just many different sources, and I could speak better Spanish then than I could now.
Right on. And when I was looking into your company, I noticed a previous guest of mine, he's actually been on the show twice now, Rick Trotman, CEO of Barksdale Resources, and I see he's also a director of Kingfisher Metals. So I was just wondering, how did you two meet? What's the story there, and how did he get involved in this company?
So I think I was introduced to him by Zach Flood, who's somebody you should also have on as a guest. Zach Flood of Kennerland. I believe he made the introduction right when Rick was moving to Vancouver, and basically along the lines of, okay, here's another younger person in the industry who's really motivated and a good person to meet, and hit it off. And he wanted to be part of the team, so
Nice.
it was a pretty quick transition there to becoming a director.
I was chatting with Zach Flood, and I never materialized. I got to reach out to him again with Kenora Lines, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll get into Kingfisher a little more, and you co-founded this company. So I'm just wondering, how many projects did you start with? Because you have three right now, right? You have Gold Range, Ecstall, and Thibert. So how did this company start, and how has it changed since inception?
Okay, so the company started, or the idea for the company started much earlier in my career, probably when I switched to geology from biology. It was one purpose. I wanted to find an ore deposit, and this is generally one of the best routes as a geologist, is take it into your own hands. But 2018 June, I believe, I staked the first claims at Ecstall personally, put together quite a sizable property for a independent prospector, you could say, and went there that September. So September 2018, my dad and I flew in there in a helicopter, and he hung out with my dog in the camp most of the time, and I went off, or I left him with a shotgun in camp in case there's any bears, and I took the dog to protect me. And we went off and got some prospecting. Eventually he got bored of sitting in the tent, and came out with me. But I was a little leery of having my nearly 70-year-old dad out there in a wet and rainy coastal steep forest. But that's how it started. Then I brought Dave Loretto in, a neighbor of mine and friend, also a geologist, and he put up cash to put the remaining portion of the project together. And he brought some people that are still involved with the company. So our CFO and our corporate secretary. And that's how it started. And we did an initial raise. I believe we raised around $930,000 privately in the beginning of 2019. Did work on Ecstall. And as we were moving this towards public listing, we realized we needed to beef up the portfolio a bit. In that time frame, COVID hit, base metal prices took a nosedive, and that's when we wanted to pick up a gold project. And I think at probably 2 a.m. over beers at the Moose across the street from the convention at PDAC. We were talking, Zach Flood, Francis McDonald and I were talking, and we liked the look of this couple claims they picked up at what is now Gold Range. And that was our first move into the gold space. And then Thibert came shortly after that. But that's kind of the brief history of how things got going. And it set us up for listing and doing a reverse takeover back in beginning of 2021.
Thank you. And with Ecstall, you obviously saw you could make a company out of it. Now, are you thinking focus solely on Gold Range, and do you see yourself spinning off Ecstall and selling that, or what's your plan with it now?
Yeah, so the idea all along with Ecstall was to build it up so that it was really just sitting there on a silver platter, basically ready for an acquisition. The goal was either to bring a major in and drill it, or to be able to vend it, or some way materialize it for the company. We decided not to make that our flagship and to focus on Gold Range because of how prospective Gold Range is and the ease of exploring there too. It is going to be more expensive exploring at Ecstall, which makes it more challenging for a junior. So yeah, the goal is definitely to either spin it out or bring in a partner. We're just doing the final steps of putting it on that silver platter, which are permit requirements, which includes an archaeology survey, which is planned for this summer. So that's the plan. We're just finishing the final pieces of it right now, and hopefully it will get drilled next summer.
And with Thibert, I think that's close to Casera Gold, right? Up north there. What are your plans there? Does it make sense logically to put money toward it this season, or just focus on Gold Range?
So yeah, the focus is 100% Gold Range this year. We will have to spend approximately 50,000 on it this summer, and a lot of that will be just processing of our magnetics data that we acquired last summer. So it won't be too onerous about our team. I think Gail would like to go there and spend a few days just sorting out the geology and the structure, but it's basically on the back burner. Yeah. And it's not because it's not a good project. It's just Gold Range, small junior can only focus so much on any given project. So, we need to focus on the one, and ideally we will get to drill Thibert within 2 to 3 years. So, I'd like to at some point, but then again, Gold Range is the focus.
Okay, so we'll focus on Gold Range, but I did see a good educational opportunity here for the people like me that haven't worked on a drill rig before, and maybe you can explain the acronyms and the difference here between a RAV drill and an RC drill. Why would you retool a RAV drill to an RC drill? What's the difference, the benefits of doing so?
Okay, so a RAV drill is a rotary air blast drill. RC is reverse circulation drill. They're pretty similar. The difference is there's a casing basically around the tube in the RC drill. So it reduces the chance of contamination from the walls that you've already gone through caving in and contaminating a sample. So it's more relied upon for, like, you can use it in a resource calculation, for example. But that being said, we've talked to, so the driller we're using actually did all of Attack Resources drilling for a decade in the Yukon, which is pretty similar ground to what we are in, and also did drill programs for Barrick and Newmont, I believe, in that area. And they did some tests, the majors did, comparing it against RC, and they actually had the same results. There was no change in the data quality. So some groups use RAB. I know Ground Truth Exploration is a big drill contractor in the Yukon. Sean Ryan's affiliated with it, and they've done a fair bit of work for companies in Newfoundland now. And they normally use the RAB drill, and that's probably a function of because they have it.
Right.
So we were hoping to retool to RC just from the standpoint of investor confidence in the results. And we thought we were going to be able to, but it looks like there's a delay there's just a supply shortage. So we won't be able to get the tooling, or our drill contractor won't get the tooling in time to upgrade it. So it is going to be RAB. But our idea all along was to follow up with a diamond drill, basically twin the holes with the diamond if we're hitting good mineralization with the RAB. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So let's just explain that a little further. Maybe too, with Gold Range, you have multiple targets, and like you said, you have a diamond drill. You're gonna focus on sorry, what is it called? The Cloud Drifter zone, and then you have other zones where you're gonna prospect with the RAV drill, right?
Yeah. So the big key component of a diamond drill that sets it apart from all this percussion drilling where you're drilling with chips is that you get core. And with core, you can determine the structural orientations. You can really just see the rock and understand what's going on. Whereas when you're working with chips, you've got a microscope there, and as each, it's probably a meter and a half each run of where you get the sample out. You're going through and looking at chips, which isn't, it works, but it's quite different than actually looking at a core where you see the changes. So the quality of the geological information isn't nearly as good. So in a structurally hosted system, you definitely want to be using a diamond drill. But what we're doing is we're going and testing a few, and also the depth penetration of a diamond drill. They can go, I think, out where you are in Ontario, they're drilling a couple kilometer holes fairly often. Whereas the RAB drill is limited to about 100 meters. So we're testing near surface mineralization with this RAB drill at new targets in areas where it might be expensive to set up water pumps, just the man hours of moving people around with a helicopter.
Yeah.
You need for diamond drilling, whereas this, you just put the drill there and let it go. So it's really just, I wouldn't call it prospecting. Like this isn't barren ground or anything like that. These are like, we're drilling below and above two adits at Standard and Langara. And Standard, we already had a backpack drill hole that was, I believe, around 67 gram meters. So, there's gold there, we're just following up on it and trying to get it in 3D now. And a day trip zone as well. It's near surface target. So to me, it's the right drill for the job. But if we find mineralization, it will get diamond drilled because we'll want to actually be able to see what it looks like and model it properly. And that's why, the area where we are diamond drilling is going back to areas of known mineralization from last year and expanding upon that with diamond drilling. And having that proper information allows you to input it into a 3D model on the fly and make adjustments to your drill program on the fly, which is pretty important and something that didn't really exist for anybody in the industry last year because nobody got assay data back within the field season. Normally in a geologist's career, you're getting data back before the end of a program and you have the ability to, oh, that was amazing. Let's go put the drill here now near the end of the program. That's been an issue, but.
Yeah, so with that, how are you looking at, because everyone's having that issue with assay labs right now. So how are you looking at limiting that? Because it can kill a story if you don't get your results back fast enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have switched labs since last summer, and the new lab we're using this new machine that's new to Canada. I don't know if you've heard about it, the Chrysos photon assay machine.
Go ahead and explain it.
So it's a new technology. I'm not, our geochemist would be the person to actually give the explanation, or people go to the Chrysos's website to look at it. It's a technology that's been quite popular in Australia. I think it was developed in conjunction with the Australian government or their geoscience division. And it's non-destructive. And what that means is normal assay technique basically takes an acid and dissolves a sample, and you can't use that sample again. This one is something like an X-ray gets shot at it, and the sample is untouched, and you can test it with another method after, which is what we're going to do because this is our first time using it. So you need to, you need to check just to make sure that it works. But it's a quite accepted technique in Australia. I know Barrick and I believe Kinross have built facilities at mines in Africa and are using it. And this is the first machine to come to Canada. It's going to be in Val d'Or, and they've limited the amount of clients that have access to it in order to guarantee a 30-day turnaround time. Perfect. So apparently we've got a 30-day turnaround time. We'll see.
That'd be nice, right?
We were told that last year though as well. But
yeah.
we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So for people that haven't looked in your company, I'm just trying to explain it in a clearer picture as possible. So there's Gold Range, there's multiple zones, and you touched on three of them: the day trip zone, the Langara zone, and the standard zone, where you're going to be prospecting with the RAV drill, right? And I heard you say you like the day trip zone. For one, it's cheaper to drill there too, but what other reasons do you like about that zone in particular?
Well, it's a great target. There's nothing there so one of the general steps you want to do as a geologist when you're looking at a target is you put all these different layers together. So geology would be one on the target scale. Geology would be one, geophysics, geochemistry, all these different layers. And do they reinforce it, or do they, make it look less desirable as you add them up? And every layer reinforces the targets there. We ran IP geophysics over the area, and sure enough, the peak was right below where we were. We ran soil geochem, big anomaly right where we were finding mineralization at surface. So everything kind of layers together nicely. But then it also has a lot of similarities with Cloud Drifter. The Cloud Drifter trend encompasses the Cloud Drifter zone, Langara zone at the east end, and then standard zone in the south.
Thank you.
Plus waterfall and essential. So there's a bunch of zones within a trend, but they all have a similar kind of story where you get faults hitting intrusions, and near these intrusions, either in them or adjacent to them, you're getting mineralization. And same story at day trip. So it's just, I love it how quickly it came about. I went camping there back in 2020 summer. I was getting Zoom fatigue, needed a break. Our crew was at Ecstall. Dave Loretto, myself, and another friend who's not even a geo came up there, brought our dogs, brought some tents, lawn chairs, coolers, beers, steaks, nice. Went out there to go have a good time in the evening and watch the sunset in the mountains. But then during the day, get some soil sampling and prospecting done. And on day one, we found this zone, which is why it's called day trip. And so I was saying to Gail, our VPX, the other day, what's amazing about this is just how quickly it's been advanced, and also how cost effectively. So once the RAB drilling is done, assuming it gets diamond drilled, it will be something like, and if it gets diamond drilled, it's getting diamond drilled because we know there's something there. So It'd be like a sure thing diamond drill. So if it all works out, it will be about $250,000 to get to a sure thing drill target. So that's cool. That's cheap.
Mm-hmm. And would you expect to get the diamond drill there this season, or that would be just RAV for this season and then?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely diamond drill. So we're going to be drilling there in 5 weeks. The drill will be turning at day trip.
Oh, okay.
On May 17th. Our crew is going up to site in 2 weeks. Our crew will be on site in 2 weeks, dusting off the tents and getting camp set up. And then the RAB drill arrives on the 17th. So
thank you for that. And now for the Cloud Drifter, you had already drilled there in the past, and people got pretty excited, specifically about holes 7 and 14, right? So maybe you can touch on that zone and talk about your execution strategy there for the summer.
Yeah, so the Cloud Drifter zone is really the heart of the large soil anomaly, and this soil anomaly defines the Cloud Drifter trend, which is a 3 by 2 kilometer area with over 50 samples in soil over 1 gram per ton. So it's a really big monster soil anomaly that had no drilling in it prior to us showing up. It had no geological map or understanding or explanation really. So it was a no-brainer drill target for us. The first pass drill program focused on only 10% of the greater trend, and tested, I believe, 600 meters north-south extent, about 300 meters east-west, but it actually tested 550 meters of vertical extent. And within that, we hit a lot of low-grade mineralization, but we also hit some high-grade structures. One thing that a lot of investors might not appreciate, that every geologist who's an investor of ours that I talk to does appreciate, is the amount of gold mineralization we hit, even if it's low grade and not economic. Just getting that kind of consistency over that big of an area and over that kind of vertical extent on a first pass program, on something that's truly grassroots, like nobody's drilled anywhere near this. It's really significant. You don't find anything like that. You know, it's pretty rare to find a system that big, having only tested 10% of it. So we were really thrilled seeing the amount of gold mineralization and an anomalism over a broad area, but then also finding these higher grade feeder structures that we believe are feeder structures. So the focus is going to be going back now that we've found some of these high grade conduits. We're going to go back and test them along strike, because we only tested them with one hit last year, because we were trying to test a bit broader of an area.
Yep.
So yeah, the program's going to go back and test that, as well as many other targets that we didn't get to last year. There's some really juicy stockwork and disseminated intrusives that visually look very similar to the mineralization the gray mining has drilled at Hemi, which is a close to 7 million ounce gold deposit in the Pilbara in Western Australia. You know, we're in a different geological environment, but it does look visually similar. So that's a target that a lot of people got excited about last year, and I think some people think we tested it and failed. It never got tested, so that's one thing I'm really excited to test this year. So drilling is going to focus on these areas in the cloud drifter trend with the diamond drill, but these other targets are getting tested even before that with the RAB drill, and we should have, or it would be amazing if we didn't have those results before the end of the season, since we're putting our samples in before most people have even begun to shovel out their camps. So hopefully we'll be able to move the diamond drill from the cloud drifter zone to these other 3 targets before the end of the summer.
And do you know how many meters you plan on drilling with the diamond drill?
So we haven't made a firm commitment to that yet, but I think around 10,000 meters, give or take, would probably be a good estimate of where we might land by the end of the season.
Nice. I was preparing for this interview by watching another interview you did with Crux Investors geologist. That was a really good interview. I'll link it in the description or something. You guys should check it out for the real technical. But there's something you stated, and I'm paraphrasing it here, that I think is also important to mention. You mentioned when you're looking at a main fault line, you want to look at faults adjacent to it, not actually the main fault line. When prospecting, why would you not look at the main fault line? Do you get what I'm asking? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you're asking. So I just want to clarify that, because sometimes you do want to be on the main fault. Okay. And often if you're at a deeper level. So one thing with orogenic gold systems, so I'm just going to backtrack this a bit.
Okay.
So orogenic gold systems they're gold systems related to orogeny, and orogeny is mountain building. And you know, Ontario and Quebec had a lot of mountain building, but a long time ago, and it's all been eroded. So you don't see the peaks anymore, but those rocks still formed in a compressional environment. And what that compression does is, you know, big blocks, mountains on top of each other. It's generating a huge amount of heat and pressure at great depths. And that is called metamorphic fluid. And those metamorphic, or that heats up silica, and it brings siliceous fluids which strip gold from the surrounding rocks, and then they come up and they form veins. So when you're deep down, sure, it might be okay to be on a main fault, but often as you move up, and I've used this analogy before, it's a inverted lightning bolt. So imagine a lightning bolt comes down and it goes like that as it comes down. Now imagine it like this. So this might be your main structure. So if you're in an area that's been really eroded, at Thibert, you're in a deeper level. Same with the Cassiar camp. You're in more of a mesozonal camp. Same with most of the Great Bear, for example. So those are deeper. So you might actually want to be on a major structure there. But if you get really high in the epizonal environment where there's been less erosion, you're often in the smaller branches that are coming away from a fault. And another thing is, and this goes back to university. The one thing our economic geology professor would always drum home was source, transport, trap, source, transport, trap. Where, there's got to be a source for the metal. It needs to be transported. So it's being transported in this siliceous fluid, but it needs a trap. If you're on a fault, it's just like think about it as a freeway where it's just constantly going. It might not trap it. It might be a good conduit, but it might not trap it. So you need changes in a fault. That's why often you see people are looking for like a break in a fault where it changes direction, a jog, say, in a fault. That's often where you create a deposit. And that's, or where two structures intersect, maybe right there. So you want changes where you could potentially, fluids will get in, but they won't get out.
Right. You explained that beautifully. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
What else I got for you here? I wanted to know what I do like about your company is I like seeing your tight share structure. You do have a rather tight float on it, which is nice. I was curious about this. Was he the largest individual investor, this Peruvian? How did he get involved in British Columbia exploration story? And
yeah, so he reached out to me in the fall, I guess, prior to our initial drill results coming out and our share price depreciating significantly. And he told me he was a large shareholder at that time. I forget exactly, but I think $500,000 or not half, 6, yeah, 4 or 6, a lot.
Yeah.
He had a similar amount to me at that point, and I've got 4.2. And then he sent me a message before the market opened the day our results came out, and our share price dropped a lot. And he said, like, great job. I hope you're going out on the town tonight. I just arrived in London. And then we chatted since then, and he kept on accumulating over the winter. And I know he's involved with other companies, but I'm not going to comment on that. But he likes the rocks, basically. That's what he likes the most.
No, for sure.
He likes the team, and he likes the project, and he likes the story the rocks are telling. It can clearly see that it's part of a really large system. And I can see where he gets that from, because I was just down in Peru 2 weeks ago visiting him, and he took me up to his family-owned mine at, we got up to 5,100 meters.
Nice. Wow.
And the portal was at about 4,300 meters, but then we went underground 1,000 meters.
Okay.
So it was easy to see their massive system. They've over 100 million ounces of silver have come out of that, and it's primarily a zinc mine. So it's knows what a big system looks like, even if he isn't a geologist. And I think that's what a lot of the geologists who are investors in the deal, which are quite a few people, that's what they see as well. It's a big system. You don't get gold mineralization of that to that extent over a broad area without there being a good plumbing network, and that's what you're looking for in orogenic systems, is the plumbing network.
So if all these geologists like it, what happened to the stock price? Why did it drop so much?
So I think there's a combination of potentially some unrealistic expectations for what you'd expect on a first drill program. It's pretty rare to just start pulling out 100-gram meter hits after another. And if you're hitting over 50-gram meter hits, which we got 2, I believe, 2 over 60 and up to 73, those are really significant hits for a first pass. So, the results were in line with my expectations, but maybe not with some people in the market. I think the other combination is early shareholders that got in at a really low cost basis. They were still up, and they still are up today. Okay. So I think that's a big part of it, and I'm grateful that we've got a great shareholder like Alejandro, who's been mopping it up and picking up all these shares and consolidating into one long-term shareholder. So there's pros and cons to that. You
No,
definitely
100%.
share price to go down a lot of weekends, but then somebody's picked them up who gets the story. So it's for this season's results, there won't be the similar amount of shares available to go
Yeah.
get dumped.
So, like you said, some people have cheap shares, and us small retail investor guys, we don't have that luxury. We have to buy on market. And I'm just wondering, is there ever, because you are going to be looking for financing, right? I'm just wondering, is it ever a good time to jump in front of financing as just a young buck trying to do this on his own?
Absolutely. One thing I will note is that before we go any further, is that people that did get in early, our company was quite different, and the investment landscape was quite different when we started. So I think January 2019, we only had our Ecstall project. We didn't have Gold Range yet.
Yeah.
Our board of directors was quite a bit smaller. We didn't have a CPC lined up for the RTO. The market was dramatically different back then. Metal prices were totally different. So with all that being said, like people got in early, but they were also taking a risk.
Hmm.
We were also private, so there was no liquidity. So yeah, I know it's easy for you do hear people bashing all the cheap shareholders and whatnot. Well, yeah, but
There's a
they're also
reason.
taking a risk.
Hmm.
So there's a pro and con to it. But in terms of young people investing in private placements, I think there's pros and cons. One, you need liquidity because you'll often have to wait for a 4-month hold before you can sell anything. And I don't know if I'm still fairly young, and I know that sometimes you need money, and you're living a lot tighter than a lot of the other people investing in this industry.
Yeah.
If I need to do a minor home repair, it might actually be a significant deal for me, where I would need liquidity. But the big benefit of doing private placements is warrants.
Hmm.
So, and that's nice as a young person too, because you don't necessarily need to put all the money in, but you get more exposure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good to do them, but everything has its pro and its con. If you can get in early though, at the beginning of a company, that's generally always a win if you can buy 5-cent stock.
Yeah. I've found a few tradable warrants on the market that I'm like, oh, I'm pretty happy to be in them right now. It's not too bad at all. Thanks, Dustin. I do appreciate this conversation. I do have a recurrent segment though. It's called The Vault. So we talked about your company. I got a good feel for it. Learned a lot with this conversation, but I do like having this more mentorship like conversation at the end. So let's get into it. And the first question in the vault is, what did your parents teach you at a young age that has stuck with you to today?
Oh, probably just hard work. That's kind of ingrained into my family. So I always spent a lot of time with my grandfather actually, and he was one of these like bust your ass war stories of forced to drop out of school, and at age grade 9, I guess he had to forced to drop out in the depression to work on the farm, and then then enlisted early, younger than he was supposed to, and was caught on Juno Beach, was captured, and spent several months in a Czechoslovakian war coal mine as a POW,
Wow.
and then escaped, and then went on to build. I believe he developed over 500 homes in Southern Ontario. So incredibly successful career from hard work and grit. And same thing on the other side of my parents. My parents are both really educated and have worked their butt off. My mom is a nurse. She never stopped working when we were kids. So I think hard work is the big one. And my parents, my dad in particular, are always putting things in perspective. Like, oh, you had to work 7 days this week. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing that story with your grandpa. Wow, that's crazy. The second question, we are the Wealth Holders podcast, so can you name a high net worth individual or wealth holder? And if you don't want to disclose their name, that's perfectly fine. But what did he or she teach you either in business or in life?
so yeah, so okay, probably about 5 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I met Ross Beatty and invited me to his office in Vancouver, and had a good chat. If this had nothing to do with wealth, but he's a very wealthy person and an incredibly bright geologist. And the chat was mainly just about what type of projects to look for to really have a successful career. And the main thing was just focus on projects you actually think are gonna or have the ability to become a mine someday. Things that aren't going to be, you don't want to be looking for 1 million ounce deposits.
No.
Basically, if you're looking for gold, you want to be looking for 10 million ounce minimum deposits. Always be looking for that. If you fall short, maybe you find a 5 million ounce deposit, great win. But if you're looking for 1 million ounce deposits and you fall short, you've got nothing. So I think the big message from him was just thinking big all the time. And it's okay to think big and get shut down.
Yeah, no, aim high, right? Why not?
Exactly. Aim as high as you can, even if it's unrealistic. You always want to be pushing the limit of what you're capable of, but also what you think you're capable of, aim for bigger. So I think that's the idea. There's a lot of things he suggested for projects. I don't think I'm capable of handling them yet. And they might be, what I mean is projects that would require massive financings to acquire, like $100 million things. So that might be, company 2 or 3, but need to have one big win first to gain investor confidence, and then you can move on to things like that.
For sure, 100%. You're a rather young guy, but I'm younger. So what do you have any advice for the younger people out there? Life advice, not investment advice.
Well, I think you're on the right track, because what I would say is travel a lot, and then also I would say travel a lot, and then I would say get good outdoor sport hobbies and really, really, really ingrain them into you, because I've noticed with how busy I've been the last couple of years, it's really challenging to keep up your fitness. But if you've got something outside you can do, it makes it better, and it made it better during the pandemic. And being in good shape makes this work a lot better. So I would say travel a lot and develop good healthy habits.
Travel a lot, just so for the overall well-being, to be happy. And okay.
Absolutely, yeah, to be happy, but also it makes you a lot smarter and more interesting of a person if you've seen a lot more things. It definitely makes you better as a business professional if you've experienced more cultures and more people and different outlooks on life, versus being pigeonholed, as a lot of people have become during this pandemic, because it's just been in this little echo chamber.
100%. Yeah. Listen, Dustin, I appreciate your time with me. Maybe we can revisit this after your drill season or something, but I really appreciate it. I do like letting my guests have a little plug if they want to at the end, but please close us off. Thanks for your time.
It's been great, Kyle. Hopefully I'll run into you at the VRIC.
Rick? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.